In question 16 we're given the following diagram here, and we're told that it shows three sections separated by joints from a leg of a crab which has an exoskeleton. So we have sort of the three limbs here separated by joints, or three parts of a limb rather. So here are our joints and here are our parts of the limb. Okay, so bearing that in mind, we're asked to work out in a three-part question, by comparison with the human elbow, select the letters matching the following. So the first part, a part that acts like a tendon. The second part, a part that acts like a ligament. And thirdly, a muscle antagonistic to B. So in order to answer this question, we have to know what some of these terms mean. Let's start with a tendon. Well, a tendon, we should know, is a muscle attachment, usually into bone, for instance. And moving on to ligaments, well, these are things which ultimately support joints, so they're present in joints like the elbow. Moving on to muscles being antagonistic, so that means that they have the opposite action to muscle B. Okay, so let's move on to finding the corresponding letters to these descriptions. So which part acts like a tendon? Which looks like a muscle attachment? Well, having a look here, the only one which seems to resemble that is D, as this muscle is feeding into this part of the limb. The exoskeleton means that the sort of skeleton that we would have internally, like a bone running through the middle of our limb, is going to be on the outside. So the bone, de facto, is going to be the outside, and that's what D is representing the muscle feeding into. So D acts like a tendon. So we've got one part of our answer. Moving on to two, a part that acts like a ligament. So what part supports the joint? So well, we have a series of hinge joints here, so therefore C seems an example of a ligament supporting that joint and not letting it collapse. So C is a ligament. Moving on to 3, a muscle antagonistic to B, so a muscle having the opposite action to B. Well, B is this muscle here, so when this contracts, this presumably flexion rather extension at this joint, so this part of the limb will move upwards when B contracts. However, when G contracts, we can imagine there'll be flexion at this joint, so there'll be movement of this part of the limb in this direction rather than this direction, so G appears to be antagonistic to B, and so G is our answer, and so our answer is going to be D, C, and G.